Dear students, so today we are going to discuss about Dalit study paper, and I'm going to take Jyotirao Phule, Gulamgiri, collected works of Mahatma Jyotirao Phule, Volume 1, translated by P.G. Patil, Bombay Education Department, Government of Maharashtra. So this is the text I'm going to take today, and you just see this. This is the text I'm going to take today. So this is the syllabus, and now let's come to the straightforward text. This is the text which I have in a soft copy. And slavery in civilized British government under the clock of Brahmanism, originally published as Gulamgiri, Jyotirao Phule. I will be, because it's a very significant text, and my concern was to take it thoroughly from your examination point of view, and it is a textual study, so I'm completely focusing on the text itself. Now this is part 1. Brahma on earth, or Lord of Earth, Narasimha, Hiranyakashyap, Prahlad, Vipra, Virochan, Bali, Baliraja, Jyotiba, Marathas, Khandoba, Malhari, Martanda, Brahma, the practice of writing on parchment, and Parashuram, the Vedic magical hymns, preaching the Puranas, Baliraja II, the Vatandar, Bhat Kulkarnis, Bhat officers, helplessness of English officers, the Education Department of Government, a condemnation of the tyranny of Brahman demons, a miscellany about the church and gospel, a mirror. Why did I write this about the author? So this is what the complete content is there, and this content, if you see, this is complete content is there, and 16 chapters are there. So we'll be going by one by one. Okay, now this is preface, and you know why? Because some of the things are very significant. We cannot avoid it. We have to see it thoroughly. So in this way, I'm going to do this reading. The day that reduced a man to slavery takes from him the half of his virtue. See, human being has a lot of capacity, and slavery is one of the things which reduce the human capacity, because it actually limit the human being. For example, a person who could be a very good doctor, but because of the caste system, he or she has to choose a traditional a traditional work which their family ancestors are doing. So in this way, the human potential is being limited and controlled. That's how this quote is there. Now, our system of government in India is not calculated to raise the character of those subject to it, nor is the present system of education one to do more than over-educated a few, leaving the mass of the people as ignorant as ever, and still more at the mercy of few learned. In fact, it is an extension of the demoralizing Brahman-ridden policy, which perhaps has more retarded and progress of civilization in India generally than anything else. So, this quote is, how our government system and our societal system is ignorant, and how it is actually leaving the people, the humans, on the mercy of the few learners. Few people are learned, and most of the masses are ignorant, and that also reduce the capacity of country as a whole. So that's how. Then many ages have elapsed since peculiar resources were afforded to the Brahmins, but the most considerate cosmopolitan would hesitate to enroll them amongst the benefactors of the world. They boast of the vast stores of ancient learning. They have amassed great riches and been invested with unbounded power, but to what good end? They have cherished the most de-regarding superstitions and practices that most shameless impostures. They have arrogated to themselves the possessions and enjoyment of the rarest gift of the fortune and perpetuated the most revolting system known to the world. It is only from a diminution of that abuse power and we can hope to accomplish the great work of nation generation. So I mean, it's actually talking about the caste system, where how these, the people who were capable enough to do, but this shameless imposture, some kind of practices and some kind of foundations are being imposed on the people, and that is why abuse of power. Certain people, they misuse the power, and it's a domination. Mostly marginalized are being dominated, and they are in majority, and few people control the power. So, and it is not like just a once and all, but it's a it's a kind of generational, and ultimately it decided the national character. So that's how these are codes which are actually able to have a correlative sense with the caste system of India, and that's how. So you can actually quote Mia's Sepoy revolt, then you can actually quote from Colonel G.J. Shelley on fisheries in India, and then Homer. So these are the significant quotes which you can actually use. Now let me come to the text, because if we read this text, it's a huge text, so I have made it in a bullet way, or maybe in a shorter way. So claim of non-aboriginal origin. The text asserts that Brahmins are not indigenous to them. Starting, they migrated from regions beyond the Indus River, Hindu Kush mountain and surrounding areas, probably more than 3,000 years ago. Indo-European ancestry, its opposite, it posit that the Brahmin descendants from the Indo-European race, connecting them to Persian, Medes, other Iranian groups and major European nations, citing linguistic similarities as evident. Migration motivation. The text suggests that the Indo-European people migrated due to the arid, sandy and mountainous region of their origin being insufficient to support their population, and they were attracted to India's fertile land. So this is how this theory of origin of the Europeans and Indo-Aryans, and how this migration took place. So this is the theory, and this whole text, if you see from here, from this line to the it's here, this is what the meaning is there. So you can actually read the text if you wish. Let me just read out few lines. So recent research have demonstrated beyond a shadow of doubt that the Brahmins were not the aborigines of India. At some remote period of antiquity, probably more than 3,000 years ago, are in progenitors of the present Brahmin race, are descended upon the plains of Hindu Kush, Hindustan, from a region lying beyond Indus and Hindu Kush and adjoining tracts. So that is how the migration theory is being supported here. And then the Dr. Pitchards, the ethnologist, they were an offshoot of the great Indo-European race, from whom the Persian, Medes and other Iranian nations in Asia and principal nations in Europe likewise are descendant. The affinity existing between the Zend, Persian, Sanskrit language, as also between all the European languages, unmistakably point to a common source of origin. So this is the origin, and the migration theory is being discussed here, and I have given you the same I have given you in the short notes. So you can read it again and you can come back again. Now this is the text which again I'll be giving you in a notes manner, but this quote is significant actually. So let me just read out. A most remarkable and striking corroboration of these views to be found in the religious rites observed on some of the grand festivals which have reference to Bali Raja, the great king who appeared to have reigned once in the hearts and affections of the Shudras, and whom the Brahmin rulers displaced. On the day of the wife and sister of Shudra, when he returned from his worship of the sumi tree after the distribution of its leaves were, which are regarded as on that day as equivalent to the gold amongst his friends, relations and acquaintances. He is greeted at a home with welcome, let all trouble and misery go and the kingdom of Bali come. Whereas the wife and sister of Brahman place on the day in the foreground of the house an image of Bali made generally of the weather, wheat or other flour. When the Brahman returned from his worship of the sumi tree, he takes the stock of it, pokes on it with the belly of the image and passes into houses. This contrariety in the religious custom and uses obtaining amongst the Shudras and Brahmins, to which many more examples might be added, can be explained on no other opposition but what I have tried to confirm and elucidate in these pages. So this is how the quote is there, but the same quote is being again given in a notes way. So what is this quote is? The text asserts the Aryans and ancestors of the Brahmins arrive in India as conqueror, not simple immigrants. It attributes to this their cunning, arrogant and bigoted nature. Now linguistic evidences, the term Arya and Bhudev used by the Brahmin to describe themselves are interpreted as evidence of their self-importance. Conversely, terms like Shudra, Mahari and Chandal used to describe the indigenous population and are seen as evidence of the resistance of these people offered to the Aryans. So what is the culture practices? The culture practices are the contrasting ritual observed during the Dashara festival by Shudra and Brahmins are presented as evidence of historical conflict. The Shudra greeting, let all troubles and misery go and the kingdom Bali come, is interpreted as a longing for a pre-Aryan ruler. The Brahmin ritual of poking the Bali image is interpreted as a symbolic act of subjugation. Aboriginal resistance. The text describes the Aboriginal people of India hardy and brave, indicating that they resisted Aryan arrival. The negative term used against them as seen as proof of this resistance. So here one significant point becomes, because those, I mean, it is the theory of this conquest. The conquest theory suggests that those who were the native people, they are being addressed in a very derogatory way. So the writer is trying to suggest one meaning that because the Aryans had to face a lot of stiff resistance from the Aboriginal people, and that anger might have forced them to use such derogatory language for the Aboriginal people or those who are the indigenous people. So that is also how one of this point is significant. Now you remember this point again. The text described the Aboriginal people of India as hardy and brave, indicating that they resisted the Aryan arrival, and that's how the arrival was very stiff. The resistance was very stiff, and that is the reason that they are being called in such a derogatory way. So I'm again coming to the because I'm not reading the text and I'm just giving you the bullet points. So mythological wars as historical conflict. Brahmin sacred text Deva Daitya Rakshasa wars are interpreted as reflecting a real struggle between Aryan Brahmin and indigenous habitants. Then violent subjugation. Brahmin leaders led protracted war, resulting in the subjugation, displacement and extermination of the original population. Condemnation of Brahmin cruelty. The text strongly condemned the Brahmins' actions, particularly those of the Parashuram, comparing them to European colonial atrocities, deemed him exceptionally cruel. If you read the text, these references of Parashuram and the story related to violent subjugation, then the mythological war, these are there in the text. So if you read it, you will find it, and I have given you in a very bullet point manner. Then we are again moving to the leaving the text, and we are coming to the main points. So let me come to. So Ganges origin and expansion. The Brahmins originated on the bank of Ganges and then spread their influences throughout India. Creation of oppressive system to maintain control. They developed mythology, the caste system, and a harsh law seen as exceptionally cruel. Caste is a later invention. The caste system is presented as a later deliberately created tool for the dominance, not an original part of their social structure. So these are the points which are there in the text, and we are just moving, and with explanation we are moving again. Now, the caste based hierarchy and oppression. So these are the points which are being covered here. You can come back again and note down these points. So this will give you the exact more meaningful and a very different understanding. So this caste based hierarchy and oppression. The text claim Brahmins intentionally created a system that privileged themselves while dehumanizing Shudras and Atishudras, denying them basic human rights and treating them as lesser than animals. So by this time, when we are talking about this subjugation, the Shudras and Atishudras are being subjugated totally, and Aryans are having the control over land and all the resources. So that is how the population which was the native population was completely controlled. So that's how the second point I read out. Religious justification for inequality. The text argues that religious texts like the Manav Dharma Shastra were used to justify this hierarchy, presenting Brahmin superiority as divinely ordained and Shudra inferiority as inherited. So here there are 2 points: caste based hierarchy and oppression, we have already done. Then religious justification for inequality. These are the 2 points. Then now I come to the third point, the condemnation of the Brahmin laws. Okay, so the author criticized the Brahmin legal system as a human and unjust, as citing examples of disproportionate punishment and the law value placed on Shudra lives. The British rule is seen as a positive force of rejecting these rules. So you see, these 3 points are significant: caste based hierarchy and oppression, religious justification for inequality, and condemnation of the Brahmin laws. So you come back again, read out, and you just focus on these points. The Brahmin is styled the Lord of Universe, even equal to the God himself. He is to be worshipped, served, and respected by all. The Brahmin can do no wrong. Never shall the king slay a Brahmin, though he has committed all possible crimes. So you know how this Brahmin caste, Brahmin community is being given extraordinary power and extraordinary protection and safeguard. Even if Brahmin, when commit a crime, okay, it should not be punished severely. There is no death penalty for the Brahmin, and the land is being donated, and this land is a revenue free. If a Brahmin is having a land, he has not he can till the land, he can have use the land, but there is no revenue or no tax he is liable to pay. So that's a tax free land is being given to Brahmin. So by this time we find that all these kind of laws are being made, where the Brahmin is given a supremacy, safety, security. To save the life of a Brahmin, any falsehood may be told. There is no sin in it. So if you are lying and just for the sake of saving the life of a Brahmin, that is no sin. No one is to take away anything belonging to Brahmins. So if anything which is related to Brahmin, no one can steal it. It's a crime, or it's a it's a sin. A king, though dying with want, must not receive any tax from Brahmin, nor suffer him to be afflicted with the hunger, or the whole kingdom will be afflicted with him famine. So even if the king, who is not able to maintain his state expenditure or state expenses, he cannot take this revenue from the Brahmin, because that's a sin. It is considered to be sin. And if suppose a king is forcing Brahmins to pay the revenue or pay the taxes, the state has to go through famine. So that's a kind of threat. Okay, so I think no king will try to take tax or revenue from Brahmin. The feet of a Brahmin are holy, in his left foot recite all the whole pilgrimages, and by dipping which into water he makes it as hold as the water as the holiest of shrine. So the foot of a Brahmin is itself is a pilgrimage, and if you dip the water his foot in the water, that water become pure and it is equal to the holiest of the shrine. The Brahmin may compel a man of servile class to perform servile duty, because such a man was created by the Almighty only for the purpose of serving Brahmin. A Shudra, though emancipated by his master, is not released from the state of servitude, for being born in a state in which is natural to him, by whom can he be devastated of his natural attribute. So, you know what? A Brahmin may compel a man of the servile class to perform servile duty. A Brahmin can ask anybody to serve the Brahmin, or pay the labor, or pay the services to the Brahmin. And if Shudras are being born for this master, Shudras are being born to serve the master. And who is the master? The master is the Brahmin. So such kind of rules are there. You just see how the superiority of the Brahmin is being established through all these regulations. Let a Brahmin not give temporal advice nor spiritual counsel to Shudra. So a Brahmin will never give any advice or any preaching to Shudra. No superfluous accumulation of wealth shall be made by a Shudra, even though he has the power to make it. This is very, very painful, because if a Shudra who is capable of accumulating wealth, or he is capable of generating wealth, is not allowed to accumulate the wealth, because wealth ultimately makes the human independent, and that same thing is here, how to control caste. So, and by his insolence or neglect, he gives pain even to the Brahmin. And even if a Shudra is thinking of accumulating the wealth, that thought itself could actually give pain to a Brahmin. If a Shudra cohabit with a Brahmin adulteress, his life is to be taken. But if a Brahmin goes even unto the lawful wife of a Shudra, is exempted for all corporal punishment. This is so filthy, and this is so abusive. So if a Shudra cohabit with a Brahmin adulteress, his life must be taken. But even if a Brahmin goes unto the lawful wife of a Shudra, he must not be given any kind of corporal punishment. See how these rules are completely establishing the superiority of Brahmin. And these are the points which you can actually understand how this is the superiority of the Brahmin is being established. Now come to the next point. So, deliberate creation of oppressive laws. The text argues that Brahmin intentionally created cruel law to enslave the control the Shudra and Ati Shudra population are driven by selflessness and cunning. So, these laws which are being created, they are deliberate laws to control the population of Shudra and Ati Shudra. So these are biased, and these are cunning laws which are created by to help one community only. Historically, conflict as the source of the oppression, the severe laws and hatred towards the Shudra are attributed to historical conflict stemming from the Brahmin arrival and the context, not inherent social order. Historical conflict as source of oppression, the severe laws and hatred towards Shudras. So even through the laws, it has been clear, because the Shudra cannot, if Shudra cannot accumulate wealth, Shudra cannot accumulate wealth. Shudra, if committing any crime, must be given death penalty. So these are the system, these are the laws which are against Shudra and Ashishudra. Systematic deception and religious manipulation. Brahmin used fabricated legends and manipulated religious belief to maintain control, present their oppressive system, and divinely ordained and suppressing the dissents. So this is, you see how this systematic deception and religious manipulation is there. then historical conflict as a source of oppression is there, and then deliberate creation of oppressive laws. So you please go through this and you can write your answer very well. Next I come here is the negative impact of Brahmin rule, then exploitation of the Shudra population, and the dependence and internalized oppression. These are the points we are going to discuss now. Okay, so the text argues that Brahmins' arrival brought no benefit to the indigenous population, portraying them as a selfish and tyrannical group. Then exploitation of Shudra population. The Shudra and Atishudra are depicted as being consistently exploited, used as a source of wealth in successive rules, including the Brahmin, without any regard for their well-being. Then dependence and internalized oppression. The Brahmin established a system where Shudras were dependent on them for all significant matters, leading to the state of internalized oppression, where Shudras even resist attempt as liberation. So now these 3 points: negative impact of Brahmin rule, then exploitation of the Shudra and Atishudra population, and then dependence and internalized oppression. So these 3 points you can again go read it out and then you can mention in your writing. Okay, now I come to the next point. Now these 3 key points for the summary. So pervasive Brahmin influence, then exploitation through various roles, and then systematic discrimination in legal system. Now we are coming to the state and governance. So preserve Brahmin influence. The text highlights the Brahmins' widespread influence in all aspects of Shudra life, from religious practices to legal and economic matters, using religious and cunning to maintain control. Then the exploitation through various roles. Now Brahmins are depicted as exploiting Shudra through various roles, including priest, village accounts, Kulkarni, and court officials, using their position to extract wealth and power. Then the third is systematic discrimination in legal system. The text accused Brahmin dominated courts of system discrimination against Shudra and Atishudra, alleging unfair treatment and denial of justice compared to Brahmin. So even in judiciary there is a bias. Then we come to the through various roles, like for example the administrative positions are there, in which also the Brahmins are given extraordinary power and Shudra and Atishudra are being presented as subjugated. And then the religious texts, primarily religious texts through which are proving the dominance of the Brahmins, and these are written deliberately. So these regulations are being made deliberately, and that is how the domination of the Brahmin is being established. Now again 3 point summary for this rest of the text. Systematic Brahmin bias in administration, then continued exploitation despite modernization, and then lack of Brahmin reform and hindrance to the progress. So these 3 points we have to discuss. My concern would be, please, if it is possible, please read the text, because for this class I am just giving you the basic points and short notes only. The text argues that the Brahmin maintained their dominance by influencing all level of Indian administration, from village to higher courts, and even influencing European officials' perceptions and leading to discrimination against Shudras. So this is how, through administration, because Brahmins, they had the control over education and this law-making agencies. While acknowledging some changes due to Western influence, the text claim Brahmin still cling to their notion of the superiority and continue to exploit Shudras through various dishonest practices. Then the third is, the author criticized the educated Brahmin for refusing to acknowledge historical injustice and relinquish their privileged position, arguing that this refusal perpetuates social division and hindered India's overall progress. So these are the points which are there before, if you just read out this text. These are the main points. If you just go through this text, which I am just making it in a green line, and you will find that this text is being summarized in these 3 points: systematic Brahman bias in administration, a continued exploitation despite modernization, and then lack of Brahmin reform and hindrance to progress. So you please come back again and then read out. Now this text which is there, and till the time its points start, I'm just this paragraph is being given in a 3 key points summarized manner. So let's see. So government's role in educational inequality, unjust allocation of right resources, and the third one is flawed rationale for elite education. So these are the 3 points, and let me come back again. We can read out these 3 points again. So the government's role in educational inequality. The text blamed the government for exacerbating the social crisis by prioritizing higher education for the elite while neglecting the education of masses Shudras, despite the majority of revenue coming from the latter. So you know how the government is also becoming biased, because it collects most of the revenue from the Shudra, Ati Shudra, and it doesn't give any kind of social priority or their concern for the higher education. Then unjust allocation of resources. The author criticized a disproportionate allocation of the resources towards the education of higher education classes, arguing it is unjust as the revenue. So the revenue is being collected from the Shudra and Ati Shudra, but the participation of them there in education is very less. And then comes from the sweet of bro of the poor. So maximum revenue is being taken and minimum expenditure is being done on the Shudra and Ati Shudra, which is injustice. So flawed rationale for elite education. The text challenged the government justification for elite education, which assumed that the educated elite will naturally spread knowledge and improve society, arguing that this approach is ignorant and the systematic issues of caste-based operation. So these 3 points, you can please come back again. Flawed rationale for elite education, how the elite education is being lopsided, then unjust allocation of resources, maximum revenue is being taken and minimum opportunities and resources are being allocated to them, and then the government's role in education and inequality. So the resource distribution, allocation of the government education system, and how this elite education is being promoted. So this way the poor are being kept more poor and the richer are being kept more richer. I would like to read out this quote regarding this objection of government to right above, and allowed to state that we have never heard of philosophy more benevolent and more utopian. It is proposed by man who witnessed the wondrous charges brought about the Western world purely by the agency of popular knowledge, and redress reflects of the 200 million of India by giving superior education to the superior classes and to them only. So superior education to the superior classes only. We ask their theory from the instance which have already fallen within this scope of their experience. They have educated many children of wealthy men, have been the means of advancing very materially and worldly prospects of some of their pupil. But what contribution have these made to the great work of the regeneration of their fellow men? How they have begun to act upon masses, how many of them formed classes as their own homes or elsewhere for the instructions of their less fortunate and less wiser countrymen, or have they kept their knowledge system as a personal gift not to be sold by contract with the ignorant vulgar? Have they in any way shown themselves anxious upon what grounds it is asserted that the best way to advance the moral intellectual welfare of people is raised? So here 2 questions are raised basically. The education is being given to the wealthy and affluent, and those wealthy and affluent had kept education for their personal use only. There is no knowledge distribution, there is no cultural knowledge capital distribution to the fellow citizens, and those who are poor, they are being kept poor and ignorant deliberately. So that is how it has created a unequal inequality in the society, and this inequality would be widening. This inequality would be more and more. Now let's come to the these 3 points. Critique of trickle down education, then we come to lack of evidence for elite altruism and irony of aristocratic argument. So these 3 points are there, and let me come to the explanation of this. So critique of trickle down education. The text criticizes the government's trickle down approach to education, arguing that the elite does not automatically benefit the masses. So if you just give the one argument that let the few of them be educated and they will educate rest of the masses, that never happen. So it's a failure of the trickle down. The lack of evidence of the elite altruism. The author questions the assume that educated elite will use their knowledge to uplift their fellow countrymen, citing a lack of practical example of such altruism. Then irony of atrocities, aristocratic argument. The text satirized the idea that national progress can be measured by the number of educated elite, highlight the inherent flaws in an aristocratic educational philosophy. So the education and the measurement of a country is not how many elites are educated, but how many all people are educated. So that's how we are trying to summarize in these points. Now again, 3 key points are the Brahmin monopoly in government position, then the call for mass education and Shudra empowerment, and Shudra loyalty as foundation of the government stability. So these 3 points are there, and I'm going to elaborate, read out these 3 points again. So let's start. The text criticizes the government's higher class education system for leading to a Brahmin monopoly in higher government offices, hindering the representation and welfare of the Shudra population. Call for mass education and Shudra empowerment. The author advocates for the shifting government focus from elite education to masses education, particularly of the Shudra, and urge educated Shudra to actively work towards liberating their communities from Brahmin domination. And then Shudra loyalty as foundation of the government stability. The text argues that the government's long-term stability and loyalty depends on the ensuring the happiness and contentment of the Shudra population, who are considered the life and sins of the country, as sinews of the country. So here, this was the introduction written by Jyotirao Phule on 1st June 1873. You can understand how wise and how contemporary this preface is there, and how widely he's trying to cover the area which is related to the hegemony of the caste, the revenue system, the unequal distribution, and how this trickle down theory, and how the majority of the masses are being kept ignorant, and how few of the elites are being given privilege, and which is widening the gap in the society. So that is how this whole system, if you understand, that is talking about the equality and the equal opportunities, because any talent or any merit could not sustain if the resources are not being provided on a time. Any student who is so much of capable and good enough, but if it is not being given at timely money to fill the form and enroll in the online exam, and even at the same time when the exam is happening, the child has to go to the exam center, appear in a good health and a best of the mind, and after that the result which is being given, which is, if the result is fair enough, then the child will pass the exam. So it is not suddenly to simply say something and then everything is happening. No, it comes out of resources. Everything is related to resources. So that's how these points are very significant, and I think because this video would be too long otherwise, I'm stopping here right now, and after that we'll come to the chapter 1. In this way, if you just see the next, all the text, all the notes I have made in this way, this is chapter 1, And in this way, if you just go, all the chapters are there, all the chapters are being given in a bullet points related to this text. Do not ignore this video, do not miss it, because this is going to help you in the best way. Okay, so I will just make most of the videos before time, before you appear for exam. Subscribe the channel, because you know my information, my YouTube information says me that 97% people, the audience is 97%, and but the subscription rate is very less. So please subscribe the channel. This gives me moral, because I'm uploading a very significant and a wonderful material. I'm helping students. So if you subscribe, that's a kind of encouragement you give me. Please subscribe the channel. Without subscription, please don't come to the channel, because you are taking the benefit of my hard work, but you are not giving me even the little credit. So please subscribe the channel, because my YouTube information, they give that most of the time. People don't subscribe and they go for my channel. Please subscribe the channel and ask your friends to subscribe as well. We will continue the video, and this will be the next video will be chapter 1, 2, maybe 2 or 3, whatever time I could take. Thank you so much. God bless you.